What up, y'all? Jason from JTV Live. You know, we just got over a little bit of an unnamed winter storm here and Gulfport flooded. I wasn't home, so I really didn't get a chance to prepare or move anything. My Lexus, which I'm currently trying to sell, so hit me up on the side if you need a cool car, like a really nice, reliable, economical one. I have it in the garage, which is kind of like the highest point of the driveway, and the water just made it up to the garage door. But the Monty was swimming all night long, and that was about 3-4 days ago. I haven't even had the time to get to it, so here we go. Let's see if she'll run. Well, I guess the first thing a fella ought to do is open it up and see what the inside looks like. Now, this car has shaved door handles. Kids, don't ever shave your door handles, especially if it's a big old hoopty like this. Oh, you hear that? The car alarm still works. Actually, I'm gonna go get the keys. Oh man. Well, the alarm seems to work. Let's see if the trunk popper works. Oh yeah, just like in the movies. A little bit of rust on that. Let's see what we got on the inside. All right, so pretty good accumulation of leaves. Looks like we got some standing water in the back seat. That's not going to be good, but at least I know that those floor plans aren't Swiss cheesed up. All right, so here's my tarp that I probably should have had on it, but I was just kind of going open air Monty. You know, the windows don't go up and down. I'll tell you what, if a feller were to redo this car, I would ixnay the electric windows. These little harnesses. Maybe someone makes an aftermarket one. Let me know in the comments if you play around with any of these sort of late model GMs that all use this switch. Does anybody make anything better than this thing? It's like a bunch of poles that slide in. It's a wild harness, and the windows just don't go up and down anymore, so I leave them at half staff. I'm gonna lick it, see if it's salty. Ooh, salt water. Oh, here's a bag that's got the Monte Carlo's cigarette lighter in it. Oh man, my seatbelt's gonna be all rusted. All right, so we got a little bit of a mess here. Man, so I'm going to have to clean out my rigid shop vac that I actually bought during Hurricane Idalia to suck all the water out of the Touareg because they wouldn't shoot me straight on whether they were gonna total it or try and fix it, and I didn't want it to be all rotten, and I think I ended up dodging a bullet because look at all that oil. That's all oily water I sucked out of the intercooler piping, so I think that thing had a shot turbo seal, and whoa, they might have made it out on that deal. All right, so before we even get to trying to suck it out though, let's make sure it works first. I'll get this driveway cleaned off, we'll back it up and sort of clean it out, but let's pop the hood for the first time and kind of see what we can do to mitigate our risk of firing this thing up for the first time and kind of assess the damage. A feller squeezy nozzle floated away in the storm, and my wheelie rubbers somehow got filled with cat piss. If you ever do move to Florida, I'm gonna teach y'all how to get cat piss out of tire. Get you one of your leftover sandbags. Get that tire propped up so it'll drain out that ring. And the solution to pollution is dilution. Just leave that hose in there and let it flush out all that cat piss. All right, so we're gonna need some spark plug sockets, a ratchet. I don't think I'll need an extension. Gonna need a flathead screwy. Also gonna grab my multimeter, which I gotta put back together because it shares 9 volts with about 7 other devices in my house. Thing I need to get is a little jug or something to collect some fuel in. And if y'all aren't really around rednecks or you see them and you're like, why do they always got like jugs and shit in their yard? This is why. Well, let's open the hood for the first time and see what the damage is. No, not looking too shabby. Nothing really seemed to get too hosed. I don't even really see like any quick surface rust. I did just recently prime and paint this with some Rust-Oleum. Not the undercoat stuff, just regular old paint. So it's not rubberized. I don't like that rubberized stuff because I redo this periodically. I'll just hit it with a wire brush, knock it off, pressure wash it, a little bit of simple green, and then I hit it again with the primer and the paint, and I do that everywhere. I do it, you know, kind of, it's hard to see in the camera, but just about anywhere that I can reach the frame. I'll take the wheels off too. So all of this has just recently been painted, the frame. Floor pans, on the other hand, you know, that one still holds water, so that gives the feller hope. But these are all, that didn't dry. That's a Swiss cheese job right there. The first thing I want to check is I got to check this power steering fluid. I'm pretty sure that shit went to the street. No, it's in there, and not even any sign of emulsification on the dipstick. One for the mate. Man, now we're gonna check the engine oil. You know, when I first built this engine like 20 years ago, the one thing that I cheaped out on was the dipstick. It's still the original one, and she ain't even screwed to the block. She'll do the twist, but it works, so whatever. Let's see how good that oil filter. I think I'm running a Mobile 1 on this with Castrol full synthetic. I don't see any sign of emulsification on this at all. I'll give her one more dip. Yep, looking good. Not milky, super silky. Now before we go crank it on this bad boy, I'm gonna do a couple quick little electrical tests with the multimeter. I'm basically gonna test the ground straps, test the battery ground, make sure it's still good. I'm gonna check for continuity between the positive and negative leads to the battery. That's gonna let me know if anything's shorted out within the system. And then just check a couple other little grounds here and there. And maybe we'll start flushing out the fuel. Finally, after years and years of struggling, man, I just switched to the pole style. Those GM screw-in ones, screw them. Plus it gives you the option to be able to run other electronics off here, which when you start fiddling around and modifying one of these old cars, kind of on a budget or out of necessity, or really just making it bulletproof so that way if you bust down somewhere, you just roll into an AutoZone or a Walmart and you get everything you need. This next test is gonna be pretty straightforward. Pretty much grab your multimeter. This is a super fancy one, but pretty much just get it here to the ohms. This one has a little beep, so when it senses continuity, it grounds out and it beeps. So we're just gonna be touching some stuff and listen for beeps. Sometimes we might want them, sometimes we don't. Now when it comes to the negative and positive terminals, we don't want any beep at all, or that's bad news bears. Ooh, we got a beep. That's not good. Wonder what's grounded. So I got this here wingy nut, and it has a couple components coming off from it. So I can unscrew that. This is basically all of my auxiliary components that run the car. Pretty much everything but the starter and distributor is powered off from this. So now we got everything apart. We'll test all of these individually, and we'll see where our culprit is. Hopefully it's not the one going into the car. Let's test that one first. Oof, that's not good. All right, no beep on my gauges and my fuel pump. No beep on the alternator. And no beep on the electric fans. So with that simple test, I know pretty much everything that I've wired myself has not been grounded during the storm. There is something on the chassis somewhere that's grounded out. Now, full disclosure, I've never done this particular test on my car, but you know, sort of to kind of show you guys what you can do to troubleshoot stuff and maybe not get yourself in trouble. These are little things you can do to diagnose issues with your car, especially if you have things like a parasitic drain on your battery that's killing your battery. I don't have that. I'm really not sure what it is. It might even be the reverse light switch that I just cut off when I threw my freaking B&M shifter in there. Let's go ahead and get this thing buttoned back up, and we'll crank her on and see if she's showing any voltage on the gauge inside. Actually, I can check the battery right now. All right, battery's showing about 11.82 volts. Now, of course, that's not cranking amps or nothing, so it might not mean shit, but it ain't dead. Start off with the positive terminal. The wingy dingy back on. All right, get ready for the negative, because when she goes live, she sets off her car alarm. I don't even know where the keys are. Actually, before I hook the battery back up, I am gonna just double check, because the one thing that will matter that goes through the harness is the power supply to the distributor. I'm just gonna make sure that mofo ain't grounded out. So that wire is grounded out. Now, of course, it's tied into the whole system that everything else is possibly grounded out to. So it doesn't tell us much, but I am gonna go ahead and stick the meter to that to make sure that it's getting at least 11, 12 volts, whatever the battery voltage is, to my distributor. So that way I'm not cranking and cranking all day long, wondering where the hell my sparks is. Now to connect the negative, I always gotta have the keys handy, because when she connects, she starts wailing. Oh, maybe not this time. Maybe she's the ground. But the trunk's popping, and she chirped when I leaned on her, so. So for years I was looking for a ghetto fab way to kind of power different things, and this is what I came up with. And this car is very, very basic. I mean, it's still running off the factory radio wires. I mean, there's really not much to these old cars, and most of the old harnessed and AC stuff has all been cut back. So I needed a nice power supply for stuff like the fuel pump, my gauges, my fans, and this is what I came up with. So I have a hot wire coming off here, pretty thick gauge. I think it's about a 10 or an 8 gauge, and it goes into a 40 amp relay, and then that's got a little power that I kind of have spliced into a 12 volt switch, and then that goes over here and it powers this little fuse block. And of course, I really don't have it loaded up much. I got my fuel pump and I got my gauges, and I even I think I put the green zip tie on there back in the day, so that way I remembered which ones are the gauges. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pull the fuse for the fuel pump right now, because I'm gonna turn the battery and I don't want it to push any fuel out, right? Because I'm just looking to see if I got battery voltage inside reading on the gauge, and I don't want to push any contaminated fuel if it's contaminated into the carburetor. Oh no! Where's the key? Oof. Loud. That is in fact a dog named Waylon, and I do have a driveway that needs paving. All right, now that everybody's joined into the live stream, go ahead and see if we got any battery voltage. And we do. We're pushing right around 11. Not sure if that's enough to get the old girl to turn on, but hey, it's something. Wonder if the headlights work. Ooh, that really brought the voltage down. Let's see what we got. Ooh, still got lights. Get the side markers kicking. Even in the front. Both headlights shining bright. A little fogged up, but that's the sealed beamies for you. All right, while the ignition's on, I'm gonna go ahead and test that little power lead, see if we're getting that battery voltage to it. If you ever used a multimeter before, it's pretty easy. Just stick the red in where the positive's supposed to be, and then touch the black to really anything on the chassis. I could even do it to the headers. Yeah, we're not getting much voltage. Yes, we're getting about 6 volts to this, so that might not be enough spark to turn it on, but I'm still willing to try. All right, let's see what we can get on this power block. Ooh, we're not getting much. Oh, you know why? Because it's not switched on. Oh wait, it should be switched on. Well, that ain't hot, so I'm gonna check the feed to my relay, my signal here, and we'll see if we're getting voltage to that, which is this little red wire right here. Oh, it's getting signal. So this relay right here probably got a little wet, so we might gotta tap it with a hammer or something. I'm gonna go ahead and take this wire in and out a few times and see if I can cycle it. Oh, I can hear it clicking. Clickety click, click, click. All right, let's try it now, homie. Still not getting nothing at the block. Back to the relay. I'm gonna pop that power supply off and we'll see if it's coming in hot. So this wire right here is coming off straight off the battery. All right, so straight off the battery is getting our battery voltage. So now we gotta check either our ground So now we're going to check our ground, and then we're going to check for continuity between the power wire and the block. So this is the power wire. I'm going to switch this back to ohmses. And we got a pretty clean shot there, so this wire is good. So hopefully just our ground got messed up, or perhaps this relay might indeed need to be replaced. And they do sell relay testers and all that stuff if you do this all the time, but I'm just showing you guys kind of the shade tree mechanic version of it. This black one right here is going to be our ground, and we'll keep it on the ohm setting, and we're going to make sure that this wire has continuity with the car's chassis. And we do have a connection. If I tap this to the battery's negative lead, we do have a solid ground here. So I would suspect that this relay is toast. Looks like we will be heading to advance before we get to see this thing turn on, but it's all good. We can still keep moving through our test here. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna energize the fuel pump. I'm gonna take the fuel line off the carb, and I'm just gonna let it pump maybe a quart or so of fuel, see if it's nice and clear and bright. That way I know there's not any water intrusion into any of the fuel lines or the fuel tank, and then we'll hit the next step. I just took the power wire from my little distribution box and just kind of ghetto sandwiched it right in there. I'm not too worried about sparks or nothing. I think it's about, it's like 5 watts and half an amp or 1 amp or something for that little Mr. Gasket fuel pump I'm running, so she shouldn't be arcing and sparking. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unscrew the fuel line right there from under the carburetor, and I'm gonna stick it in that there little jug, and I'm gonna throw that there fuse in, and we're gonna watch and see what kind of fuel comes out her. I just replaced all this fuel line too, so shouldn't be too bad. We got 0 PSI in the gauge too. If it shows any pressure, don't be pulling it off like this, or you'll get a little bit of a crazy daisy to the face. All right, check it out, player. We got this routed into that there jug. I'm going to go ahead and throw this fuse into the fuel pump, and she should start pumping. I do have one of those clear sort of fuel filters in line, so we'll take a look at that when we get to pumping, but hopefully it is clear and bright. So you got a nice little flow there, even for the low battery voltage. Looking at our fuel filter here, we can see that it's nice and clean and bright. So I'm gonna go ahead and call it. This is that ethanol free, man. I can't be wasting this. Go ahead and reattach that fuel line. I have no problem with the looks of the fuel. Looks like a pretty clean sample of cat piss. I mean, ethanol free 90. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna see if she cranks. And she does. You know, you guys are probably watching me walk around this thing kind of just not even phased that it just went through a flood. But I've had this car for almost 25 years, and we've been through our ups and downs, and I've shoveled it off the lawn, pulled it out of garages, all that stuff plenty of times. So these are kind of things that, you know, if you get one of these cars, it's hard to find time. I maybe get a chance to turn it on twice a month, take it for a ride once a month, which totally sucks. I know there's people out there that probably love to have this car, but I mean, I don't know. We've been through too much for me to give up on it now. But I've had to do this a lot of times. And after I store it, or, you know, it just happens to be stored due to time constraints, these are kind of the things I do to make sure that I'm not going to destroy it when I turn it back on. And pre-lubing the engine is one of those things that I do every time it hasn't been turned on, and probably if it's been 3 or 4 days since it's been turned on, I do this procedure. And the way I do that is I disconnect the fuse for the fuel pump, disconnect the power supply to the distributor. That way I'm not getting any fuel and spark. And then in little 2 to 3 second intervals, I kind of bump the starter, let that engine crank until I build up pressure on my oil pump gauge right here. Now this is kind of risky because there could be water inside that oil pan, and perhaps where the dipstick is, it's not hitting the water, and since it hasn't been stirred up yet, it hasn't turned into that milkshake mess. So hey, that could happen here. Maybe we'll do a video on getting water out of an engine, or maybe just getting an engine out of a car. We'll put a fucking Plaidessey. We'll make this. You guys ever seen that Plaidessey? I'll put a link in the description below. We'll make it the Plani. But anyways, let's go ahead and get it. One thing that's incredible about this, and you know, I built this car back before the internet and all that. It is the original mini starter that I put on this car 20 years ago, man, and it has cranked this thing to the moon and back, probably to Mars. If I told anybody I wouldn't talk about it, let's go. All right, so there's one little short volley. There's 2. You see we're building that pressure. And you don't want to burn your starter up. Just go really short. And another thing that this test is kind of letting me know is that I really don't have any like hydrolock type situation, because the engine is freely cranking. You know, I said I wasn't gonna pull a spark plug. Let's do that real quick. But she's pretty lubed up, and I'd say the engine oil is pretty well mixed. So let's check and see if we got any milky silkies. All right, synthetic 1030, no whammies. Oh yeah, it's looking good, man. No milk. Okay, so I don't think any water got into the engine, and that is good to hear. Let's check the radiator. I was having some phantom water loss for a little bit there. I'm not quite sure what it was. I replaced the radiator cap. I hope it's not one of the head gaskets, but I haven't really seen any symptoms of it. So it's not like I drive the car fast, and it seems like it loses most of it when it's sitting. So more on that to come. Last time I flushed this radiator out though, I did fill it up with actual antifreeze and distilled water. For years I ran pretty much rusty tap water in this thing, and never really was a problem. Once I got the thermostat dialed in, just run a 180, 185 on these, 190, kind of whatever was stock in that engine in the car originally, because it's kind of paired not only to the engine, but to the specific car, the kind of the plumbing of the way the cooling system goes and the type of load that weighted vehicle puts on it, the emissions, the heat rating of the spark plugs, like all of that is a big thing, man. You need a certain temperature for your combustion to be kind of at its peak. So yeah, cooler isn't always better. And I find if you go ahead and you put those lower temperature thermostats on there, it's gonna stay open the whole time and the water is just cycling and cycling. And even with some BA aftermarket electric fans, it's never gonna cool before it's fed back into the engine. So when you have that little bit higher temp of a thermostat, it's gonna kind of keep it in the radiator. It's gonna get cool and it's just gonna open up and send little shots of really cool water in there and kind of cool it down. So just my 2 cents on that. All right, so kind of last minute things before we try to get this thing on. Just check for like leaves and stuff. I mean, all kinds of stuff was floating. I think the majority of floaters I got this time were cigarette butts and dog shit. So that was really nice. But yeah, just check around, make sure that there's no leaves caught up, nothing inside of the fans, any of the water pump, power steering belt. We did crank the engine a few times, so we know that those spin freely and not going to be a problem. I did run that straight into there just for now so we can get it cranking. I am going to stand fast on the relay. I think depending on how this next sort of few moments go, this might be going to advance to get charged, and I'll buy one of these, but I'll put this back in, and hopefully when this has kind of full voltage, it'll be enough to get her to close. If not, I'll throw the other relay in, or maybe even just keep it in the glove box, because it's not a bad idea to have those things on hand. Now I'm going to go ahead and prime the fuel system. I got an inline gauge here, so we're just going to go ahead and stick our fuse in, and she is energized. Here she comes. And kind of what I'll do at this point is I'll go ahead over here and I'll start yipping the throttle, and I'll do it until I see the accelerator pumps inject some fuel. Let me see if I can get a good shot of that. Oh yeah, see that fuel pumping in there? And she does like a healthy little prime, because that'll kind of get this thing kicked over with minimal spark. So got to go ahead and remember to plug our distribudoodle back in. Hopefully that thing makes sparks. And I don't have a choke cable hooked up on this thing. This is definitely something that I really need to do. I had an electric choke on here at one point, and it was kind of finicky, even though it was the same exact Edelbrock. I actually just rebuilt this one, and I got a bunch of footage for it. I just needed to put it together. But I put it about there for the choke on the first few cranks, and I can smell that fuel. So after I give it that first couple little nips of fuel, I let it sit for a second. That way any of those excess vapors will evaporate and the whole thing doesn't go kapooey. All right, we arrived at the moment of truth. Fingers crossed, guys. I'm gonna go in there and see what I can do. Get high, get drunk. Don't be stupid. All right, boogie, boogie, boogie. Let's see what we got. Yo, that's a motherfucking Bonnie right there. Pardon my French. So we did fire right up, like literally first click, kicked on, and ran for a few seconds and then died. It was making some squeaking noises, but I mean, all kinds of stuff rattles on this thing. So I don't think it was anything with the internals of the engine. I did a quick, another little redneck check. You could do this with a thermal imager or an infrared temperature gun if you have one, but it didn't run that long, so I know the exhaust wasn't that hot. I touched every tube on the headers, and I found that the number 1 and the number 8 cylinders were cold, so they're probably not firing. Maybe they got water in them. Let's find out. There doesn't appear to be any water on the spark plug, which is a good thing. I'm gonna go ahead and crank it over and we'll see if any water shoots out of this cylinder. For good measure, I did that same test on the 1 and the 8. Both have spark, don't have water. I'm confident with going on. The sun's just about to go down. Let's go ahead and see if we can get this thing on. Well, fellers, I think that's about as far as we're gonna get without a trip to auto, zone, or advanced, get that battery charged up. I don't like chasing my tail with a dead battery, but we made it this far. We'll get it charged overnight, fire it up tomorrow. Just got the new battery hooked up. All right, we're just gonna verify real quick that we're getting voltage. Let's take the multimeter on one of the leads off our block, and we'll stick one to ground. And looks like we're not getting that full voltage, so we're gonna go ahead and swap that relay. Even though it made the clicking noise, it wasn't still good. And this one's nice because it even has a little screw hole to mount it on something. Now, if you are doing one of these from scratch, I mean, I would just recommend going prong by prong. That way you don't screw them up. But 85 is ground. My little mnemonic device is this is an 85 Monte Carlo, so we're attaching it to the Monte Carlo. Right across from that's 86, that's what's controlling it, that's what's making it on and off. And then we got 30, which is our power supply from the battery. And the last one is going to be the power going to our accessory. Well, I could already hear the fuel pump going. So I'm pretty sure we got full voltage here, but let's do it one more time. I know a lot of you guys probably get super annoyed or a little bit maybe intimidated by electrical issues. And really, I mean, that's the root of all problems in most vehicles, but just some very simple, basic principles. Look, we got full battery voltage now, so we'd be good. But just simple principles. I mean, it's really just continuity, being able to test to see if something's grounded out, be able to, you know, because sometimes the ground's a good thing, you want to go ground, sometimes you don't want it to be grounded out, and then just checking for voltage. I mean, if you can figure out how to do those two things on a multimeter, you'll be good. All right, well, I think the anticipation's done. We're about ready to fire this thing up. I want to go ahead and get it run up to operating temperature. Pretty much, I call it operating temperature once the fans kick on. If they kick on, that'll be another multimeter journey if it doesn't. I'm gonna go ahead and take off the radiator cap too. You know, I kind of identify with the zoomers a little bit. I like to run it no cap, you know what I mean? And now I just kind of monitor it and let it burp out some of the air since I did add that water. This isn't like a super complex or high pressure cooling system, so it'll be fine to run with the cap off. Get a little bit more choke. It likes that choke on the first little get, but then you gotta back her off. Everything sounds good now. I'm gonna walk back out here and give you all a little dose of that money. We got quite a bit of water coming out of the starboard stack there. But I mean, it happens, right? Ah! Took it off too quick. Show y'all something over here. If you got a car and it's kind of smoking like right back here somewhere, it's probably a leaky valve gasket cover. That's what this is right here. The valve cover gasket shot right there in the back. Yeah, we gotta do something about that. This car hasn't been on in over a month and it just went through a flood. So I'm gonna let it get all the way up to operating temperature before I go yipping on it, putting a load on it, trying to drive it, all that good stuff. Because we still gotta put some air in the back tire, get it up to operating temperature, put it in drive for a second and check that tranny fluid. Looks like our water's kind of cleared itself up, but once it got the temp, I'll put the can back here and give her a couple rev blasts and we'll see see what it's got to say about that. Let's see what the temp is. All right, so we're getting close to about 180. It's about 165 right now. And one of the reasons I leave that rad cap off is because I can tell when the thermostat opens. It's like right now, I know it's probably pretty hard to see inside there. You can see a little bit of steam. And inside there, you can see those little tiny holes. See, there really ain't much happening. But when that thermostat opens, it's gonna be like a little waterfall rushing through there. And that's how we know that water's circulating, you know, via the water pump through the hole that's created by that thermostat opening. And I also like to listen for my fans to kick on. So my fans kick on at around 180, thermostat opens at 185. But I mean, there is a little bit of overlap there. Sometimes you'll see one more than the other, but I do know if that thermostat's flowing for more than like a minute or two, and those fans aren't kicking on, got fan problems, dog. All right, so we are just starting to get slow seepage. See the little tiny pores of water coming out? And that's what I'm talking about, not getting like one of those super cool thermostats, because that little tiny trickle, oh, there go the fans. Nice. See, that little tiny trickle right there is what's gonna make your cooling system more efficient and effective, because the radiator can batch cool its whole volume in cold water, colder than 180 or 185, and then slowly insert that into the engine to pull heat off. It doesn't overwhelm the system by keeping it open. Also, your fans draw less amps because they're not running all the time, so you're not stressing out your car's electrical system. Now that we're up to temp, I'm gonna let it idle for about 5 minutes. We'll kill it, put air in that tire, fire it back up, exercise that tranny, check the tranny fluid, and see if we can get this thing off the lawn. Yeah, check out that alternator output, man. This alternator's a beast. Remember how 1 and 8 were no call, no show? We're gonna go hit it with a thermal imager and see if they're making some heat. Temperature on all the like the runners for the headers are around 520 degrees, but those two cylinders are still around 200 degrees, so they're kind of like dead cylinders. That might be the topic for another video, but I have a feeling that it might be a valve lash adjustment, and I do need to replace those valve cover gaskets. So definitely make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss that video. But we are gonna take this thing off the lawn and bring it down to the end of the street and back. One thing I did to make life easier with my golf cart is I rigged in one of these old school SIG lighters, and you know, it's kind of nice on the daily because you can plug you a phone charger in there. But I like it because I can plug in my little 12-volt pump and pump up the tires on all of my cars without having to move them around or get the keys for them and stuff. So cool little hack. I'll put a link in the description below to something like that. I'm gonna go ahead and fire it up and put it in out of gear a few times. Reverse. Got reverse. And we got forward. All right, I think we're ready to get it into the street. I'll put a link in the description below to one of these in case you need a hood prop. Well, there's just one too many peeps and dogs on the street to have any fun, but hey, we got it running. I really don't want to hit the road and romp on it too much until I figure out what's going on with those 1 and 8 cylinders. So please, if you guys like these car videos, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, that way you don't miss a single one. Let me know down in the comments if you have any advice or critiques, or if there's anything that you'd like to see. Thanks a lot, guys, and I'll see you next time. Peace.